guys, welcome back to another GeekaWhat video, and in today's video we're going to be building an incredible, an amazing, a superb RTX 3080 gaming PC build. I've picked up a load of great components from Corsair, ASUS Republic of Gamers, and even a snazzy little case from Cooler Master to put together one of my favourite builds of the year. In this video, I'll run you through all of the components I selected and why, the build process step by step from start right through to finish before booting the system up and seeing how it stacks up in some of the latest AAA titles and some older, more popular games as well. Whatever games you're looking to play on a system like this, we'll have it covered a little bit later. Without any further ado though, let's dive into it after a quick ad from today's video sponsor, ASUS ROG and their brand new AlphaSync bundles. Are you looking to build a PC in 2021? You probably are if you're watching this video. The bundles from ASUS and AlphaSync give you a power supply, a motherboard, a CPU, some RAM, a cooler, basically everything you need to get started with some fantastic discounts on offer. Check out the links at the description below to shop at Ebuyer here in the UK, but back to the video. As usual then, we're going to kick things off by installing as many components into the motherboard as possible. This is kind of the beating heart of your system and provides the skeleton for all of the components to be built onto. This is the ROG Strix X570F Gaming. It's an awesome X570 board with all the features we could possibly want, apart from Wi-Fi, but that's been covered off very nicely by this cool little ASUS PCI Wi-Fi card. It comes equipped with all the features we could possibly want, with support for the latest Gen 4 SSDs, dual channel memory support, and some great overclocking headroom. It's also got a built-in rear IO shield, which is one of my favourite additions to any motherboard in 2021. And the only thing it really lacks is Wi-Fi. But for that, we've got this ASUS dual band Wi-Fi adapter, which I'll leave linked alongside everything mentioned today in the description below. I'll be coupling our motherboard up with a Ryzen processor, specifically the latest 5000 series Ryzen 7. This is going to be an awesome chip if you're actually looking to do a bit of streaming, video editing or productivity, as well as of course gaming at 1440p and 4K on the 3080, which we'll come back to later. As ever, installing the CPU is actually relatively easy. Locate the little golden triangle on the processor and line this up with the plastic triangle on the top left corner of the CPU socket. Pull up the retention arm on the socket, drop the processor nice and gently into place and secure it back down. That really is all there is to it, and we're pretty much good to go. It allows us to move on nicely to the RAM or the memory. I've gone for a 16GB kit of Corsair's Vengeance RGB Pro. It's black in its aesthetic as well, which means it works well with the build today, and of course gives you that lovely dual channel memory performance for a little bit of an FPS upside, especially with AMD processors. In order to install the memory, you just want to pull back the clips on the second and fourth DIMM slots, find the notch on the memory, and line this up with the notch on the motherboard. Go ahead and just slide that RAM DIMM into place. It can be a bit fiddly, and you do need to apply just a little bit of pressure. Once you've done this though, you will hear a nice satisfying sound, and you know that your memory is all installed and ready to go. The final component you want to pop onto the motherboard before the motherboard assembly, as it's called, is complete is the storage. Now this choice is going to be a lot down to personal preference, but this 1TB WD Black SN850 gives you Gen 4 speeds of up to 7 GB a second in a form factor and a package that works well today. If you're going for a 3080, storage can actually become a bottleneck. That's just how powerful these new GPUs are. So make sure you pick yourself up a drive with plenty of speed for a build like this one. Don't sell yourself short. And with that, we can go ahead and pick up our case and move the completed motherboard into place. This is Cooler Master's Masterbox MB520. When it comes to cases, you really have got loads of options. And handily, we actually made a video covering our top 10 options for 2021. This works well though with 3 RGB fans up front, and although the front panel isn't mesh, you do get a good bit of airflow clearance down either side. And I personally like the look of acrylic or glass on the front of a case. I think with those RGB fans, it will just look absolutely awesome. As ever, I could unbox this case the difficult way, or I could use the power of movie editing magic to unbox it a little something like this. Let's go ahead and just take off the quite thick actually tempered glass side panel to give us plenty of room to actually install the motherboard. I think that it makes the most sense to lay the case down flat while we go ahead and do this. Just makes screwing in the motherboard that little bit easier. Talking of which, in order to actually do this, you first want to locate each of the holes through the motherboard itself. So you've got 3 at the top, 3 in the middle, and 3 along the bottom. These are the holes we're going to use to actually secure the board into place. The next component on today's proverbial hit list is the Corsair LiQH100i Elite Capellix. I've used this cooler in plenty of videos on the channel and would always recommend it. With the Capellix RGB fans and RGB water block, some great cooling performance to keep our Ryzen processor nice and chilly, it does the job really well. To actually install the cooler, the whole process is a lot more simple than you might actually anticipate. You want to go ahead and just find the water block, that's the bit that actually goes on top of the CPU, and then take these included brackets. These are made up of a bracket that goes around the cooler, and then of a thumb screw and a D. This D-shaped bracket is going to pop over the pre-installed mounting hardware, as you'll see in a moment. I promise you, this will all make sense. In the meantime though, you just need to slide this over the cooler. So we're going to have one on each side, a little something like this, and this is actually the chunk that's going to go on top of the processor. Before we do that though, let's actually secure the radiator down. I'm thinking the top of the case makes the most sense here. If you had a 360, I'd whack it in the front, but otherwise it keeps our GPU clearance nice and long. With the cooler in then, and looking pretty fly if I do say so myself, we did just have to spin around the Corsair logo with an Allen key to get it the right way up. We can move on to the final few components today. That is of course the graphics card, our Wi-Fi card which drops in just below, and then finally the power supply, which I will come back to a little bit later. The RTX 3080 is one of the best GPUs we've ever seen, and although the new 3080 Ti has come out, this isn't intended to replace the 3080. Instead it sits above it for a fairly hefty price premium. They're both great cards, but the 3080 for me is still the mega sweet spot, and despite it being nearly a year old now, it's still a fantastic buy if of course you can find one. This TUF cooler as well is one of the best options in terms of value for money. It's a lot cheaper than some other coolers on the market, but still gives you that landmark 3080 performance and even a slight performance gain over the Founders Edition. It's a fantastic card with 3 large fans, a nice cooler. It's a little plastic and doesn't have a great deal of RGB, but otherwise it looks great. And that will slot in just above where we pop our Wi-Fi card. This is the PCE AX58BT. It's a dedicated Wi-Fi and Bluetooth adapter with a dedicated antenna that you can position anywhere you want, on a desk, on your PC, under your desk, and it will do the job nicely. These are going to install in our top 2 PCIe slots. Make sure the GPU is above your Wi-Fi card, as you tend to go from highest to lowest as far as bandwidth is concerned. And with that done, the system is looking pretty fly. For the power supply in this build, this is something a little bit different. ASUS have only gone and ventured into the world of PSUs, with a 750 watt unit we featured in a video a couple of weeks back, and now this 850 watt unit. You get a really nice bag of included accessories, including some stickers, some Velcro cable ties, and literally hundreds of normal cable ties, which is always great to see. You then also get the power supply, which comes nicely packaged up actually in this kind of protective sleeving. The design is really, really cool. You've got this ASUS branding, black on black, and it's fully modular. Plus, it's not just a style over substance with an 80+ gold certification, giving you a true 850 watts of maximum output. You do want to go for 750 or 850 watts when it comes to a 3080, as they're pretty power hungry chips. Same with the latest powerful Ryzen processors. If you go 650, your computer will just crash spontaneously and you won't know why. I can tell you why. It is the power supply. In terms of the cables we need, let's actually grab the ones that we're going to use for this build. Being a fully modular power supply, you of course choose which cables you do and you don't want to plug in. So we're just going to go ahead and plug up a motherboard, PCIe, CPU and SATA power cables to power up all of the components and any RGB hubs or anything like that in the system today. Once you've gone ahead and actually popped these into the power supply, you can screw it in with the fan facing down to pull fresh air from up below your case before wiring up all of the components. And once we've done that, the system is basically done, and we're ready to see just how good it performs in, as I say, some of the biggest AAA titles out there. First though, let's see just how good it looks in customary GeekaWhat style, in the only way we know how, with an epic glam montage. I think you saw that one coming, ladies and gentlemen. In 3, in 2, in 1, roll that montage. Oh, that was very loud. When it comes to the performance you're able to achieve with this system, you're sure to be super impressed. In fact, we gathered some great numbers across the board in our wide suite of gaming benchmark tests, which we use for all of our different builds, allowing you to easily compare and contrast them at the playlist linked in the description below. For this system though, let's kick things off with Apex Legends. one of the most popular titles on the market right now. Here we managed to achieve an impressive 142 FPS on average, with our testing in Apex and many other titles today done in 4K resolution. This pushes the system to the max and shows you what's possible at the highest res. Drop down to 1440p or 1080p and you're sure to be able to bump that frame rate to over 200 frames per second. It's a similarly positive story in Call of Duty's Warzone. First of all, with DLSS disabled, we got an admirable 103 frames per second, with strong 90 and 99th percentile results. But enable NVIDIA's DLSS technology, it is of course the AI-backed resolution scaler that will render the game out at a slightly lower res, use AI to upscale, giving you that great visual fidelity, but with higher frame rates, we jumped up to 121 FPS. So around about a 20% frame rate increase here, giving us some more esports level frame rates, despite our use of super high resolution. Moving on next up to Cyberpunk, we first tested out with both ray tracing and DLSS enabled. Of course, ray tracing is NVIDIA's fancy light tracing technology that increases the visual realism, shall we say, of reflections, lighting, puddles, shadows, all that good stuff. Here we got 56 FPS on average with strong 90 and 99th percentile results. All the frame rates, as usual, tested with both NVIDIA FrameView and MSI Afterburner's RevaTuner, while jumping to the same resolutions, but with ray tracing disabled, shot us up to 92 FPS on average. 81 and 70 frames for the 90 and 99th percentile results kept us catered for nicely. And Cyberpunk, despite being one of the trickiest games to run, surely ran well on this system. Talking of running well, Fortnite. At 1080p competitive settings by popular demand, you guys always ask for us to test Fortnite. At these settings, we got just shy of 300 frames per second. In fact, I'm sure if we tested again, margin of error would dictate that we'd go over the 300 mark. But for now, 298 FPS on average, with 90 and 99th percentile results, which never drop below 200 frames per second, you are sure to be impressed with a cheeky bit of Fortnite. GTA 5 is next up today, tested in the game's inbuilt benchmarking mode. This is a really repeatable test, that despite being a bit older, is still really great to run on the most demanding systems. It allows you guys at home to compare this system for yourself, just copy our settings and see what numbers you're able to achieve. We got just shy of 150 FPS on average. That moves us nicely on to the final game today, a game that if you like frame rate is certainly the one for you. It is of course Valorant. 260 FPS on average, what more is there to say? That's pretty bonkers and super duper impressive. 90 and 99th percentile results were strong as well, as you'd expect across the board with this awesome 3080. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to give it a big old like rating. Thanks for watching though, and as always, we'll see you in the next one.